I'm Kathy from Eclectic Images and thanks for joining me today. Today's tutorial I'm going to be playing with some of the new Catherine Pooler ink colours, which are just gorgeous, and also some of the new accessories, plus a few different stamp sets, and creating a lovely floral card with a earthy, denim-y sort of colour theme. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so our stamps that we're using today are going to be from Eclectic Images. We'll have the Magnolia Blooms set. Let me move that into shot. And we'll just be using a couple of the flowers and one of the leaves out of that. But then combining it with the BeeArty Perfect Petals set, which is similar but a little bit more old world feeling. I think it's going to make a great team, these two stamp designs. And then we'll put a few brush words in there as well. Now, our ink colours. We're going to be working with, these are the new ones out of the Beach Resort collection. They're in the Spa collection ink, so they're all the more muted tones. And we've got Clay Mask, Serene, Sparkling Berry, and Merlot. I mean, how cool are those colours? Plus, we've used a bit of Versamark for some embossing. And our embossing powder is the Ranger Vintage Pearl, which is a lovely creamy colour with a bit of a gold sheen to it. Really pretty for more of an old world looking card or a softer looking card. Now the other things we're going to play with is some of the new Catherine Pooler blending brushes. So this is a set of 4 smaller size blending brushes, but also the Catherine Pooler, I've forgotten what they've actually called it, but it's a working tray. So it's a tray for holding your ink pad in place while you're doing your blending. And the really cool thing is if you have 2 of them or more, they're actually magnetic. So they'll sit together on your desk without moving while you're working with them. So we're going to use those while we're doing our background blending. But we'll first start off with a little bit of painting on our stamped piece. I've already stamped and embossed in the Vintage Pearl on our bit of cotton blend cardstock. So you can just see that little bit of a sheen of gold there. And we're going to paint using our aqua wash brushes, but using the ink colours that we're working with. And I've decided that I'm going to team together. I had a lot of trouble deciding which colours to play with. Oh, I'll just show you first where I have actually stamped out the 4 new colours. So that's the Serene, the Clay Mask, Sparkling Berry, and the Merlot. I mean, how cool are all these going to be to use together? But I think today I'm going to actually, the colours team with different ones in the Spa collection. So the Clay Mask has teams with the Polished, which is one that was already in the collection. So that's what we're going to use for doing our flowers. But we might add a little bit of Merlot in there as well. Not quite decided yet, but I'm going to team those with the Tranquil and Cove Blue that are also out of the Beach Resort collection. So this makes up the 8 new inks, with the Cove Blue, Tranquil. There's also Sea Glass and Bay Breeze, the more greeny, bluey greeny tones, and then mixing in these lovely pinks and apricots as well. So let's do some painting. So I'm going to put out my colours just on my craft mat. So that's a bit of Polished and Clay Mask. That's what that sits in there. Okay, and we might add that touch of Merlot in there as well. Oh, fun. Now, okay, so with our petals, I want these to be fairly delicate. Just run a bit of water through my brush, get it running. And you always get too much, so we'll just dab a bit off on our paper towel. Now I've decided to work just on the mat today rather than working on my scratch pad. And that's partly because I want to show how we can then create a background and make the most out of having these colours. So let's pick up our softer colour first. And we're just going to wash that into the petals. I don't want the colour going all the way to the end. So I'm just going to wash a bit of water in there just to soften it. With my finer brush, I will add some of the Polished colour and then use my medium brush just to blend those in together. Now, if you were only working with one brush, that'd be fine. You would just clean that brush out between your colours. So just pop some water in there. Those colours are just going to look so nice together. Now if you notice when one of your petals is drying, you're getting a little bit of a hard edge, before it fully dries, just go back and just pop a bit more water into that, just so we don't get any hard lines there. Now if we've got a petal that's more at the back, we could just do that in the polished colour. So that's going to supply a little bit of depth. Now I'm just going to give my fine brush a bit of a squeeze, just it's not flowing quite enough for me, that's better. Like if you run it on your hand, you can feel when you've got some water flowing. And let's very quickly move around these petals. So popping a bit of our clay mask on first, then flowing some clean water into that. Clean your brush, flow a bit more water into it, make sure you soften it out. And then just blend those colours a bit together. And I'm just turning my card as I go so that it's easier for me to work the brush into my edges. Now you don't even need to really blend the two colours together much if you want to. You can just sort of touch it with a bit of water and let it blend itself out. So again, this one is a back petal. So we're just going to do that just with the polished. Same as we did with that back one there. Funny thing when you're working with two brushes is actually keeping sort of which brush you're using for which colour. Pop some water in. You can start to see the flowers starting to take shape now. Just turn your card around as you need to so that you're always tackling it at a really good angle for you. Now we've got another back petal. Now I'm choosing to do those back petals a bit darker, but you don't have to. You could do them all in the same colours if you wanted to. Just clean my brush, push that water in. Any music happening, Matthew? Oh, good. I couldn't hear it. I'm thinking it sounds awfully quiet when I'm not talking, but
it's because it's not raining today.
Gosh, we've had it's midwinter here and we've had so much rain. Okay, that is looking lovely and delicate. So now we just need to add some to our second bloom. So I'm just going to colour a few petals at once on this one, just because you don't need to be spending the whole video watching me watercolour. Let's just give that a little bit of lighter colour on there. A bit lighter on that one. And we might make the petals on the inner part of this one a little bit deeper. Often your flowers, your newer petals that are just emerging are a richer colour than the ones that have already sprung out. Is it Magnolia time of year in Ballarat now? Have we missed it?
No, it's just
Every year I go around and try and take photos of magnolias and
Found a whole bunch on the computer yesterday.
just to get some more inspiration for colours and... Okay. Now I'm just going to come back and clean my brush off and just come back and grab that bit of Merlot and just pop it in the centre of that one. Maybe just a touch in there. Just to make that, give it a bit more interest there. Maybe that's too much, let's pull it back a little bit. So if you want less, just wipe your brush over it, wipe it off on your scrap and then go back. And you can actually move the colours around a bit till you get them looking just how you want them. So lovely and soft. Okay, while that's drying, let's get rid of this colour, but the way I'm going to do that is just grab my spritzer bottle, because I often say while you've got colours on the mat you can actually create several backgrounds. So I happen to have a piece that I've already embossed with our dream catcher. I'm just going to give that a spritz and just wipe it through our colours that we've got here and make the most of having those colours on our mat and see what we can create as a background. So rather than wasting where we'd put those inks to paint with them, we're actually going to make something else out of them. Let those colours flow a bit. Where's my bit of paper towel? I'm just going to towel that off a bit and then come in and add some more. Okay, so creating quite a bit. Obviously I've got some other colours on my craft mat because we're getting some blues coming through there. Guess who didn't clean her craft mat so well after playing with shimmer dust, I think. But I'm going to just leave that to one side to dry. Now I'll clean my mat up. So that way, just if you've been doing some painting or something and using your mat as a palette, don't waste the inks, make another background. And that could just be done, I mean, I'd already embossed that piece, but yeah, I could have just put a bit of card in and then used that later, put it to one side, used it later as another background. So now we're going to create a background piece for the one that we've just been working with. So I'll grab a bigger piece of card, which I did put here. Okay. Now I'm choosing to go with colours today that aren't what you would normally put together, going with oranges and blues, but I just thought the denim-y blue colour of the Tranquil and the Cove blue just lend themselves towards going with anything. They go well with green tones, with purple tones, with pink tones. I thought, let's mix it up a little bit and pop them with the orange tones instead. So we're going to use our little tray bits here. So you can pop your lid in there so you keep track of what your colour is. Pop your ink pad in there. They've got little sticky feet underneath to help to stop them from walking all over your table. Just pop that one together. And I'm going to work with Tranquil. So I'll pop that one in there. Now, the Catherine Pooler brushes. The Catherine Pooler brushes are a white bristled brush, which I think is going to be great for using with your lighter colours. So the brushes that I normally sell are a black handled one and a darker bristled one. So what I'm going to do is keep my Catherine Pooler ones more for my lighter colours, because the bristles will stain with the inks and I'll be able to very easily see what colour I've been using them with. But because they're lighter, they might be harder to clean out darker colours from them. So I think they're going to suit the softer colours and stick with using things like my number 10 brushes or the other blending brushes for the deeper colours. So let's see how we go with that. So I'm going to start off picking up some of the clay mask and just start working on our scrap on our craft mat and then onto the piece. Or because I know this is just going to be a border, so our main panel will sit in here, I can actually work from here and work out if I want to as well. Because if I get a blob there, it's not going to matter. It will be covered once we layer our cards together, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm looking at just creating a patchy look, but I still want the colours to blend in together. So I'm still popping the colour where I want it and then smoothing it out on either side, which gives me room to blend my bluey tones over it. And just to stop me getting any finger marks anywhere, I'm just going to grab a bit of paper towel, and as I turn the card around, I'll use that to hang on to it so that I don't get finger marks on it and get my fingers in the inks.
I thought that's why you did this.
I do usually get very inky, don't I? But I'm trying to be a little bit tidier today. And of course, if you get any ink building up on your mat, you can pick that up as well and shade that on. So they do give a really nice soft blended look, these brushes. You know, the combination of the ink and the brush is softening out really nicely, which gives you lovely areas to blend your other colours back in. But if you want the colours deeper, you are going to be able to build up richer tones just by layering it up. Okay, now let's switch to our Tranquil, which is our really soft blue. Now I'm just going to give the mat a little bit of a wipe because there may have been some of the clay mask as I was working on. Some would be on the mat, as you can see, and I don't want to be picking that up with my blue ink. So I'm just going to switch my paper towel over to a clean part and start working with this blue colour. So it's a really soft, smoky sort of blue. It's just a little bit different, putting colours that you wouldn't normally put together. But I have plans for it. Matthew doesn't look convinced, but I've got in my head where I'm going with this card. That is really cool, having those just fixed there so that they don't run away on you at all. That would actually work really well too if you were just picking up a bit of colour on a brayer or something where ink pads tend to move around. These that hold them nice and securely. Just moving around till I've got all that border area covered. I'm not trying to cover the middle area at all because, as I said, we're going to be mounting our main piece of our card on that. This is just our background. Okay. So it looks a little bit blotchy. I mean, the edges are all nice and soft, but it's just the colours aren't as compatible as what we would usually use, but that's okay because we're going to bring some stamping into that and start tying it all together. So let's get the BeeArty stamps that we're going to use. So this is the Perfect Petal set. And for this part, when I'm stamping, I am going to bring my scratch pad up just so I can stamp off my edges and things. So move those forward a bit. Okay. And grab some acrylic blocks. And we'll start off stamping in the same colours that we've, just in the blue tones, so with the same soft blue, and then I might come in with a bit of the next shade. Actually, in this set, there's actually 4 shades. So there's actually Stone Blue, then Cove Blue, then Juniper Mist. So it goes through the 4 shades. But I think we'll just jump to Cove Blue. So let's start off with a little bit of our Tranquil. Now this is going to be the challenge, isn't it? Getting your ink pads back out of those. I think I will just ink up nice soft taps there and worry about getting it out later. So now you can start to see with this lovely old world looking image how it's just those colours are just going to start to work. So I'll just put a few of them on, clean on my cloth, and switch to one of the other blossoms. now I'm going to bring in this Cove blue. I'm a little bit nervous it's going to be too dark. I'm going to stamp it in the middle so I can see whether I'm happy with it. See, I think that's a bit too dark. So let's ink up, stamp off once on our scrap and bring it in second generation. That's better. I'm not worried about how this bit's looking because that's the part that's going to be covered. I think that's enough. I said that word, didn't I? That's enough. It's a bit out there for me, isn't it? Okay, give my stamp a bit of a white clean. Okay, so now we can have a look at that with our other piece on top, and you can see how that background's working. Let me turn it around the way it's going to go so you can see it. But I'm going to grab our Cove blue and do some shading around the outer edge of both pieces. So for this, I'm going to switch to my slightly darker brush, and we're going to come in and shade around this one. So mainly at the outer edges, and just bring it in softly, just as much as we want to. Okay, same on this piece. Just realising I'm going to need more of these trays so I can have more of my ink pads out on them. And as you get this extra colour on, those other two colours are starting to really work together. And I'm a bit worried that I'm getting inky fingers again, so let's grab a bit more paper towel. Rightio. So that's getting a really nice blend to it. I'm going to leave the Cove blue out for a moment so that I can do some extra stamping with it. That's our background piece. So on this piece, I'm going to mask those two flowers, which means I've got to discover where I kept where I put my masks, but here they are, just to one side. So this is where I've already stamped the flowers onto a post-it note. You can see they've been used multiple times. And then we can just pop that over the top of our little blossoms there. And we've got one for that bud as well. So now I'm going to use one of the leaves out of the set with the Cove blue. Remember, when you're stamping with these ink pads, it's just such a gentle touch. I'm just going to bring a few leaves out from there. Maybe one coming over the top. Trying to work out which way I want to put it. I might pop it out that way. In fact, we're going to have another one. I know I normally like odd numbers, but I just think we need something else wrapping around there. All right, odd numbers. We'll bring another one across there. Okay. And now our words that we're going to use out of the Brush Script Believe set. And I'm just going to have a look. I want to put Believe in Yourself. So I've got to make sure that when I stamp Believe in there, that I'm leaving room for that down there. Or what we could do is actually stamp this bit first. So really light tap. Stamp that one in first. And then we know that there's room for it Or I could get smancy, couldn't I, and ink up on 2 colours. Let's just tap that across. The top half of it is going across our Tranquil, and then the bottom half is going to go across our Cove blue. And there'll be quite a line at the moment, so I'm just going to grab my dark blue brush and just go over where those 2 colours are meeting so that it blends them in together. And I actually want the word to look like it's coming out from underneath the flowers. So by having those flowers masked, this word is going in behind them. And I'm not happy there because I missed the top of the L. And I haven't got this in my stamping platform. So I'm going to have to be a little bit tricky. I'm going to ink up that top of the word again. Line it up very carefully.
I feel like I should put a drum roll on this.
And hope it's in the right spot. Yay, yay. Love it when a plan comes together. Let's lift those masks out of there, and so that word is now peeking out from underneath our blossoms. That's pretty cute. Now the only other thing I wanted to do was add on this background piece, add a little bit of texture into it. So we're going to get, I think I'll go with the polish. No, let's try going first with the clay mask colour. I'm just going to tip it out of there so that I can stamp with it. So pick up that, and I've got my Splatter stamp. Now the Splatter stamp is made with a more concentrated area which will go with very soft inks and build up some background colour. But for this I want more of the open splatter look. And we'll see how much it shows up. So we'll just ink that up and just start stamping in. Just give it that little bit of dotty texture. So I'm stamping it once near the edge and then stamping it in again a bit further in, so we get a slightly stronger splatter and then a softer one. So stronger on the outside, and I turn the stamp around so I get different parts of the pattern coming out. And that's fine. I'm just going to switch to the more solid end and just give a little bit right on the edges. Both these stamps and these inks, this is just making me really keen to try the other colours, the other newer colours, particularly that Merlot. I think I'll have to do another video very soon where I play with the Merlot. Okay, let's, out of our little tray holder, get the lid to that one and pop it away. And I'll move my scratch pad out of here and we can have a look at the 2 bits together and see how we've gone. So there's using quite a non-traditional colour mix. Just going to give that a little bit of a flatten out so it sits a little bit better there. We could have a look at that and think, is that okay like that? I think we possibly need a little bit of a border. So I think before I mount it up, probably put it with a little bit of extra cotton blend here, just to give it that little, just a very small border between those 2 layers. I think will work a little bit better. We could also check with using it with maybe some recycled cardstock to see, because we've used these soft apricot-y tones, the recycled cardstock could make a lovely border as well. But I think I'm liking a lighter border with it. So when I mount it up, I'm going to pop that one in and then layer it up on there. But how cool do those colours look together? The other thing, I think we need a little bit of a shadow in around some of those petals. See how the flowers aren't quite standing out enough? So if we wanted to add a shadow in there, there's 2 different ways we could do it. We could get our, and we can go with the Tranquil blue to keep it nice and soft. So let's get that out and put a little bit on our craft mat. And I'm going to tip the lid out of here as well so I can, again, pop the lid on there. It's always safer to have lids on your ink pad so you don't stick your fingers or your elbows into them. Now we could just use our fine Aquah brush. Make sure it's got a little bit damp but not too much. Pick up some of that colour and just very softly, I'm too wet, very softly pop a little bit of colour, just that little bit of shadow around the edge of those petals. Just because it's such a soft embossing colour, it needs a little bit of depth around it just to pick it up and make it show a little bit more. But because we've done some background shading there, we've got to be careful because those inks are water soluble. So if we put water over where we've done our shading, it could create puddles into that, which it's already doing for us. So I'm going to actually have to make something of that. So let's put a whole lot more water into it and make it look like we want it to be all watercolory. So I'm just going to push some of that background colour around until it meets in with our petals.
You can say bye-bye and finish this and show them finished product.
I could. Oh, we're up to half an hour already. Oh, I'm sorry. We've gone way too long. I just want to show one other thing that we could do for our shading to create a little bit of background colour around that, and that's putting the mask back over the flower. Pop the mask on. And we could just use a brush, and I'll just grab the one that we were working with before, even though it's a little bit big. But we're just going to shade from the mask out a little bit. And that will just, see how that's just given us a very soft shadow there that just makes that flower come out a little bit more. The other last little touch I want to do is with those leaves, just run my water brush around the inner edge of each of those leaves, and it's just going to, because the Catherine Pooler inks are water reactive, it just means it will just soften. And can you see the difference between that leaf and this one? See how that's just brought that colour into it a little bit? So if we just do that around our leaves, it's just going to soften those and make it fit in with the background better. Okay, so I think that's enough. Yes, I will have a bit more of a play and add a bit more shadow to those, mount them up, and then put a picture up for you to see. So thank you for being with me today and having a go at this, and we'll show you the finished one in just a moment. Hopefully you can join me soon for another play and we'll mess around with some of the other colours. Okay, thanks for watching.